Behind the rhinestone curtain of classic country music lies a rap sheet stamped in county seals, prison bars, and rolled-up warrants. What follows is the untold road trip through crime, time, and redemption for 15 icons whose records spun on jukeboxes even while their fingerprints dried on booking cards. Keep listening, because the deeper we drive, the more the truth growls like a V8 on bald tires. And by the final mile, you'll be wondering whether greatness dodges the darkness or drags it along for the ride. Merle Haggard starts our journey in the stark echo of San Quentin. Inmate A45200 arrived after a botched liquor store burglary, convinced that the only way out was through the roof or a tunnel. Then Johnny Cash roared onto the prison stage for a New Year's concert in 1959. Haggard felt the floor vibrate and, in that thunder, realized songs could open wider gates than hacksaws. By the time California's governor wiped his record clean in 1972, Haggard had traded tin cups for platinum, proving a cell can be a songwriting conservatory if the walls sing back. Cash himself was no choir boy outside that chapel. He hoarded pills in guitar cases, stumbled across borders with pockets rattling like maracas, and soothed sheriffs by signing Bibles. One night in El Paso, he posed for a mugshot still wearing stage black, eyes blazing brighter than the flashbulb. The next morning he wrote, "Starkville City Jail," handing America another proof that trouble, told in 3 chords, can sound like prophecy. If Haggard and Cash found melody behind bars, Billy Joe Shaver and Johnny Paycheck found mayhem. Shaver's legend exploded outside Papa Joe's saloon in 2007, when a man insulted his songs. The 70-year-old asked, "Where do you want it?" and squeezed the trigger. Miraculously, the victim survived. Shaver beat the rap on self-defense and strolled out grinning, saying the good book still loved him. Paycheck's meltdown happened decades earlier in an Ohio honky-tonk where he fired a round at a pushy stranger. 2 years in prison sharpened the edge of "take this job and shove it," turning a working man's complaint into a cellblock spiritual. Some outlaws fought bullets, others fought powder and leaf. Waylon Jennings was caught in a 1977 DEA sting when a dealer mailed coke to his Nashville studio. Agents barged in, but thanks to a clerical error on the warrant and a lightning-fast flush, the evidence swirled away with the plumbing. Over an open mic, he muttered, "The only thing they got in common with songwriters is they're always looking for lines." Willie Nelson preferred cannabis. Patrolmen from Texas to Louisiana could recite his bus license plate by heart, yet every citation became another punchline t-shirt and a fresh plea for legalization. On a good day, he thanked the deputies with backstage passes. On a bad day, he wrote another verse about freedom wrapped in that familiar outlaw chuckle. Addiction wrote darker verses for Steve Earle, Keith Whitley, and Townes Van Zandt. Earle's spiral ended in '94 with a hard opiates charge after he skipped rehab. 6 months behind steel bars gave him time to scratch lyrics onto cafeteria napkins. The probation-era album I Feel All Right sounded like sunrise through reinforced glass. Whitley never escaped his bottle. Repeated DUIs and public drunks littered his record until the whiskey finally offed him at 33, leaving fans to imagine the songs he never finished. Van Zandt drifted through vagrancy arrests and psych holds, serenading squad cars with ballads that made hardened officers stare at the dashboard and hope the light stayed red a little longer. David Allan Coe, Hank Williams Jr., and Ray Price each wore trouble like custom embroidery. Coe did juvenile time for robbery, survived brutal adult prisons, and later exaggerated tales of death row days to burnish an already steel-tipped reputation. Whether every detail was true hardly mattered once the prison number became album art. Hank Jr. endured multiple alcohol-fueled arrests, from casino slugouts to backstage blow-ups. After a near-fatal Montana cliff fall rebuilt his skull with plates and bolts, he told reporters the only thing thicker than his blood was his stubborn streak. Ray Price, the velvet crooner who softened honky-tonk, stunned fans in 1999 when deputies found cannabis at his ranch. He welcomed officers like dinner guests, paid the fine, framed the citation, and joked it sat nicely between 2 gold records. Violence took its bloodiest bow with Spade Cooley and Jerry Lee Lewis. Cooley, dubbed the King of Western Swing, murdered his wife in 1961. Sentenced to life, he still finagled a furlough to play a benefit for prison guards, only to collapse from a heart attack minutes after the encore, a deus ex heartbreak the tabloids devoured. Jerry Lee barreled through the 70s collecting charges like guitar picks, public intoxication, firearm violations, and that drunken midnight at Graceland when he demanded Elvis come out and duel. The mug shot, with hair wild and a nickel-plated .38 front and center, remains a masterclass in unfiltered swagger. Take Ray Price, for example, the velvet-voiced crooner who softened honky-tonk with lush strings. Fans remember for the good times, but in 1999, deputies remembered the smell of fresh-cut weed drifting from his Mount Pleasant ranch. The 73-year-old opened the door, greeted officers like dinner guests, and admitted the stash was his. Asked why he risked a spotless legacy, he cracked a grin. "At my age, a man deserves a little comfort." The citation became late-night talk show fodder, and Price hung the receipt by his platinum discs, telling visitors that rebellion never retires. Steve Earle's jail spell came wrapped in cold turkey sweats and courtroom lectures. Locked in the Davidson County facility, he traded cigarettes for pages of borrowed notebooks and penned verses about skylights too small to show Orion. Guards joked that the Grammy winner ran the quietest cellblock book club. He recited Faulkner passages to bunkmates who nodded to the rhythm even if they didn't catch the words. When release day finally arrived, Earle walked straight to a pawn shop, bought a battered harmonica, and played a blistering blues riff right on the sidewalk, declaring the street his new rehearsal room. Townes Van Zandt floated through life like a tumbleweed on a whiskey wind. Arrests for vagrancy, psych hold violations, and drunken disorderly calls formed a dotted line across Texas. During one overnight stay in Houston, he was asked to perform for visiting city officials. He sang Tecumseh Valley so stark and lovely that 2 councilmen wept. Yet when morning came, the magistrate still fined him. Townes shrugged, pocketed the citation, and muttered that even angels pay rent. His myth grew precisely because nobody could separate poetry from the police blotter. David Allan Coe's criminal resume involves stolen cars, knife fights, and escape attempts that read like pulp westerns. In a Florida lockup, he supposedly slept in a cell once occupied by serial outlaw Carl Panzram and claimed the walls whispered confessions. Fellow inmates remember him crafting guitars out of scrap lumber and heavy-gauge wire, determined to keep the blues alive. When Coe finally walked free, he parked outside the Grand Ole Opry in a hearse and tried to sell tickets to his own sidewalk show until security encouraged him elsewhere. Keith Whitley's battle was quieter but just as lethal. Court dockets list repeated DUIs, one noting he sang harmony with the breathalyzer tone. Friends staged interventions, judges ordered treatment, yet the bottle stayed louder than reason. One winter night, he sat in a jail cell drawing music staffs on a styrofoam cup, promising the deputy he'd quit. 5 months later, the coroner zipped the promise into a black bag. In Nashville song circles, writers still toast him with black coffee, a sober salute to a voice silenced too soon. Hank Williams Jr. spent years outrunning his famous father's shadow and his own temper. In 1976, he brawled with a club owner who demanded a shorter set. Newspapers printed the mugshot alongside headlines like, "Family Tradition Continues." After the cliff fall, deputies noted he cursed the morphine drip more than the man who sold him bootleg whiskey. Each new arrest only sharpened his rebel brand, yet in calmer interviews, Hank admitted he'd gladly swap every tabloid splash for one ordinary night without pain. Spade Cooley's tragedy is so grotesque it almost defies melody. Once a box office titan who sold out the Hollywood Bowl, he devolved into paranoia, convinced his wife's every glance hid betrayal. The murder was merciless, and jurors reportedly prayed for their own forgiveness before delivering the verdict. Years later, Merle Haggard told reporters that Cooley's downfall haunted him more than any prison ghost story. "Talent doesn't come with brakes," he warned. "Some folks floor it until the engine explodes." Jerry Lee Lewis carried dynamite in his left hand and scripture in his right. Arrest files detail the 1976 gun charge at Graceland. He drained a fifth of whiskey, strapped on a nickel-plated .38 and crashed the gates, demanding a showdown with Elvis. Officers confiscated the revolver. Jerry Lee cracked, "I just came to show the king how to play piano." He spent the night in jail, then wrote Meat Man, a rocker radio stations initially refused. Decades later, the mugshot still leers from t-shirt racks in Memphis tourist shops. Johnny Paycheck, paroled and grayer, toured VFW halls where veterans cheered every lyric about bad bosses and worse choices. After shows, he signed autographs with his prison number beneath the signature, a reminder that authenticity sometimes requires open scars. Billy Joe Shaver kept a .22 under the pickup seat even after his trial, telling interviewers he never wanted to shoot another soul, but trusted God and good aim in equal measure. Waylon Jennings, long past the coke flush, spent his twilight years warning rookies that celebratory rails come with interest payments, sometimes paid in pounds of flesh, sometimes in touring revenue, but always collected. Willie Nelson, now in his 90s, owns a cannabis company, a cheeky twist on decades of roadside seizures. He sends deputies free samples of CBD lotion every Christmas, embedding apology letters in the packaging like Easter eggs. Some write back asking for concert tickets. And let's not forget the lesser-known repercussions. Managers hustling bail money at 3 in the morning. Steel guitar players fired because they mouthed off to troopers. Bus drivers left stranded while the star spent a weekend in county. Crime is a solo act, but collateral damage plays in the backing band. Why do fans forgive? Maybe because each arrest proves the songs weren't marketing copy. They were confessionals. When Merle Haggard crooned, "I turned 21 in prison doing life without parole," listeners knew he was quoting cold fact. When Cash sang about wearing black for the poor and beaten down, he'd shared cells with them. Authenticity beats perfection. Dents tell better stories than chrome without a scratch. Meanwhile, Steve Earle keeps his county-issued mugshot tucked behind a laminate AA chip in his wallet. Both relics reminding him sobriety is a daily encore none of us can phone in. Somewhere on a Texas highway, a patrol car flips a U-turn because the nose knows Nelson's bus even before the radar blinks. Inside, Willie opens the glove box, not to hide contraband, but to hand over pre-signed 8x10 glossies that save everybody paperwork. Johnny Paycheck's pistol is long impounded, but the scar it left on Ohio bar wood still draws tourists who order a beer, touch the dent, and whisper the chorus that made unemployment feel like rebellion. Down a gravel road, Hank Williams Jr. fires a rifle at tin cans, grins at the recoil, and tells the film crew he's calmed with age, though the local sheriff's department still keeps an extra patrol on festival nights. Not every outlaw found redemption. Spade Cooley never saw freedom. Keith Whitley's final drink emptied before any handcuff could click. Jerry Lee Lewis outlived judges and rivals alike, yet the Graceland trespass photo still circulates online every anniversary of Elvis's passing, a reminder that some ghosts duel forever. These contrasting endings stitch a warning through the tapestry. Sometimes the only difference between a comeback anthem and a cautionary tale is one thin line of powder, one bullet's angle, or one judge's mood at dawn. And yet, country audiences continue to embrace these flawed troubadours. Maybe it's because the music itself feels like honest confession, a steel guitar crying where courtroom testimony chokes, a fiddle riff dancing where rehabilitation files dust. We forgive because the songs admit what polished press releases never could, that life gets messy, that temptation has sharp teeth, and that anyone might skid off the highway on a rainy night. So next time Mama Tried crackles through cheap speakers, remember the concrete floor where Haggard once slept. Let Cash's Boom Chicka Boom remind you of pills rattling in a tin cup. Hear the gun smoke curling through Shaver's honky-tonk heroes. Taste the highway dust in Earl's Copperhead Road, and feel the grin in Willie's On the Road Again, a grin that faced more squad cars than sunset stages. These aren't just chart hits, they're affidavits sung under oath of melody. The final chorus rings out in that limbo between repentance and relapse where all outlaw tales end. Picture a dim cellblock corridor, green cinder block walls lit by a single buzzing bulb. Footsteps echo as a country legend walks free, guitar case in one hand, release papers in the other. Outside the gate, the moon hangs like a stage light. The first fresh breath tastes of diesel, dew, and possibility. Somewhere a radio DJ cues the singer's newest single, unaware it was composed on toilet paper with a borrowed pencil. Whether you cheer their defiance or shake your head at their downfall, remember this: the jukebox doesn't judge. It simply asks for quarters and tells the truth at 45 revolutions per minute. These 15 men filled its slots with melodies carved from misdemeanor, felony, victory, and defeat. Their music reminds the rest of us that stumbling isn't the end unless we quit getting back up. And that maybe, just maybe, a life lived at full volume is worth a few dents on the chrome. Keep that thought riding shotgun as the sun comes up over the interstate. The outlaw highway stretches on, patched with broken parole promises and paved by unforgettable songs. Somewhere beyond the horizon, another battered tour bus changes lanes, its exhaust note harmonizing with a distant train whistle. Inside, a newcomer hums a riff, glances at the police scanner, and wonders if greatness still requires a little danger. The answer echoes from every booking number we've recited tonight. Art can bloom in soil fertilized by flaws, but only if the artist survives long enough to harvest the tune. Maybe you'll hear it tonight in the rumble of your car engine, in the clink of a long-neck bottle, in the sigh of wind sliding across an empty porch. Every scrape, shuffle, and guitar bend you notice is another reminder that country music was never meant for spotless heroes. It belongs to the hitchhiker with a warrant in one pocket and a half-finished chorus in the other, to the parolee who can still hear the reverb of a slamming gate echo inside his skull, and to anyone who's ever prayed for sunrise while dreading the questions daylight will ask. When that fiddle kicks and the singer confesses his sins in a voice cracked by miles, lean in. The story isn't warning you away from trouble, it's inviting you to survive it, to turn setbacks into set lists, and to remember that darkness may bruise the melody, but it also fattens the bass so the redemption can really shake the floorboards. So crank the dial, keep the tires rolling, and let the scars between verses steer you home safely. So slide another quarter into that neon-lit box, let the stylus drop, and tip your hat to the sinners who turned hard time into timeless rhyme. Their bars, steel and musical alike, keep ringing long after the courtroom gavel falls silent. And as the final note fades, ask yourself, if destiny slammed a cell door on your dreams, would you crumble, or would you write the song that sets you free? Take Ray Price, Steve Earle, Townes Van Zandt, David Allan Coe, Keith Whitley, Hank Williams Jr., Spade Cooley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Billy Joe Shaver, Johnny Paycheck, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, Johnny Cash, and the spirits of every honky-tonk between. They broke rules, broke hearts, and sometimes broke the law, but their mistakes built the soundtrack of defiance. So here's the final reckoning. 15 legends, 15 caution signs on the neon highway, 30 jailhouse keys jangling in country's back pocket, and one takeaway: truth, when sung with twang and tremble, never stays locked up for long. Play it loud tonight. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.